Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Merrifield,
My name's Sarah Waddell.
and this is the Biblical Buckaroo. All right. So we kind of took some time there in between this podcast and our last podcast. I had surgery on my nose to get a bone spur taken out of my face. That was fun. And then we recorded one podcast, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't working. And so we decided to re record it. So I finally made it through here today. And as you can see, Sarah is wearing our awesome new Biblical Buckaroo sweatshirt, which is available on the Bridles and Bibles website at www.bridlesandbibles.com. So if you're interested in getting one of those and helping support the ministry and everything that we've got going on, we'd love to see some people out there wearing that. So Sarah, do you want to start off with prayer?
Yes. Dear Lord, thank you for today and thank you for this opportunity for Jess and I to get together and spread your love and your word and help plant the seed and help others grow in you. May you bless us today with our podcast and bring us the words and speak on clarity and truth from you. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. So today we want to talk about what it means to be a biblical ranch wife and parent and child of God. And so I know Sarah's got a lot of good stuff. So you want to start us off, dear?
Yeah. So, like Jess said, we're going to talk about a little bit. I've had a lot of women particularly ask me about how do you transition from being a working wife into being a stay at home mom? And Jess and I thought it would be a really good idea to cover, what it means to be a good wife in God's eyes first and talk about that. And so, starting off before I get into what it means to be a godly wife, I always like to give a little bit of context because there's a lot of different things that the Bible says that people kind of get hung up on when it comes to the wife's responsibility. And so, I generally like to give a little bit of context and what God calls a husband to be. Now, this is something that I don't necessarily feel super confident speaking on because I'm not a husband.
Yeah.
But when I was getting to the age where I was gonna get ready to start dating, and I always had in mind, when I was gonna date, I was gonna date with the potential to marry somebody. And my dad made sure he was like, I want you to read up on what God calls a husband to be so that you can see that in men. And if they're not gonna be able to fulfill the role that God's calling them to be, then they aren't the one for you. Kind of deal. And so I like to start out with talking about what God calls the husband to be. And it's really funny because, people talk about Proverbs 31 woman and all of that stuff. And then they talk about all of this stuff that kind of deal like, oh, well, women are supposed to do X, Y, and Z. But in reality, when I look at role a husband's supposed to have and the role a wife is supposed to have, I mean, honestly, we really got the sweet end of the deal. um,
Yeah.
my job is to stay at home and clean the house and raise children, and he's got to go out and provide everything and die for us,
Yeah.
And so, in First Timothy 5 verse 8, um, one of the things I like to talk about is husbands supposed to provide for their family. And so in Timothy 5:8, it says, if anyone does not provide for his relatives and especially for his immediate family, he has denied the faith and is worse than the unbeliever.
Oof.
And one thing that I like to point out to especially women who are dating is that providing for your family does not just mean a roof over your head and food on the table. Providing for your family means if I need a shoulder to lean on and cry on, my husband is to provide that for me. If I need emotional support, my husband is to provide that for me. If I am needing a break from my daughter and get some time to myself, my husband is to provide that for me. Any need for me that is going to provide me physical, emotional, spiritual growth or relief, it is my husband's duty to provide that for him. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that there's a lot of, I've met quite a few even Christian guys that think provision only means a roof over the head and food on the table.
I have
And
two.
but that's not what God says. God does not say provide your family a roof over their head, a good place to live, and food on the table. It says provide. And it doesn't
Yeah.
specify exactly what that means. It says provide the needs of your household. And so that means anything that your wife needs, you know,
Yeah.
not wants, that's different. I want my nails done. I don't need my nails done, kind of thing.
Right.
And another thing that I like to talk about too is, God talks about how a husband is supposed to be head of the house as Christ is head of the church. And that means that he is to direct, he is to lead, he is to be decisive and things like that. But a lot of people don't realize, head of the house as Christ was head of the church. Our husbands are to treat us as Christ does the church. Christ died for the church. We are the church. Our husbands, if need be, they are to die for us. They are to lay their lives on the line for us so that we have a better life.
Yep.
And so that's another thing that I like to point out, when it comes to husbands, like that's a pretty significant role and duty to take on when it comes to you know being a husband. That's a pretty huge thing. And then also in First Peter 3 verse 7, it says, husbands in the same way be considerate, w- uh, considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner and the heirs that gave you the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. And so God calls
Mm.
husbands to be considerate of us, to take care of us, because not only are we their wives, but we provide them children and we raise their children. That is their legacy, that is everything. And when a husband is to provide, to be considerate and take care of his family in that way, it says nothing will hinder your prayers. And that's
Mhm.
pretty significant. And then the last verse, where is it? It's the one that we talked about last time. I can't remember. I don't have it in my Bible here written out plain as day. But in the Bible it says that oh, here, of course it's right in front of me. It's the first one highlighted on the page. In Proverbs 31 verse 10, it says, a wife of noble character, who can one find? She is worth far more than rubies.
Yeah.
And so that one I really like too, because it's kind of like, it's not only saying that like your husband should treat you, that you are worth more than rubies, but it's also calling a wife to be noble in character.
Yeah.
A wife that is noble in character is worth far more than rubies. Not just a wife, but
Mhm.
one that is specifically noble in character. And I really like that. And that's one thing, that it makes me ever so grateful for my husband, because he treats me as if I'm worth more than rubies. He's considerate of me. He provides for me more than just a house over my head and food on the table, kind of thing. He's fulfilling his role as a husband.
Yeah. I think that's definitely something that men in society today really miss is it's more than financial providing. It says
Yes.
provide in the Bible, but it's not just you need to provide a house and food and take care of the needs. It's emotional. It's
Yes.
being there to help raise your kids and do these things. And that's something that's often missed because, in the term of being a cowboy, we're trying so hard. These men are trying so hard to be handy and work 24/7 that they're missing how much they are needed at home. And as a child who grew up myself with dad not being in the house, like, the effect of that is insane. Even if my dad was a bad dad, even if he wasn't a very good dad, if he had been a part of the home. If he had been there to provide any kind of emotional needs, I think my life would have been drastically different. And that was
Yes.
something that I told my husband, Brady, before we even got married. I said, look, I don't care how much money we make. I don't care if I'm growing food in the backyard and we're scraping by. I care
Mhm.
more that you are at home with me and our children and emotionally there to help raise her than I care about how much money's in the bank because
Yes.
I know how invaluable he is. He is
Yes.
needed desperately. And if he's not around, then and it's not that I don't appreciate how hard my husband works. I appreciate how hard my husband works so much. And I love that he really puts in the work and the effort to try and take care of us. And
Mhm.
gosh, you should see the boots my husband wears sometimes. We finally went and bought him a new pair of tax returns. And I mean, there's holes in his boots and his sweaters and his jeans and he doesn't look super great. Half the time he looks homeless, but he makes sure that my daughter and I are taken care of. He makes sure that
Yeah.
not only are we taken care of financially, but that we're taken care of emotionally. I
Yes.
I told Brady, I was like, hey, I'm kind of stressed out. I'm really struggling. Can you take Layla with you to go feed cows in the morning? He was like, yeah, sure. And so even though it's hard on him, even though it isn't doesn't make his mornings any easier, he'll get up, he'll take Layla with him, he'll go feed cows, and I'll get time to myself in the morning to get myself ready and make sure that I'm in check so then I can turn around and be a better mom. And
Mhm.
that is what it means to be a good husband, to be a man of
Yes.
God, to take care of your family, to provide for your wife and your daughter.
Mhm.
It's being there. It's not
Yeah.
just financial.
Yeah. Well, it's like this year, I'm competing in the Mustang challenge and stuff. And I got to a point where I was just like, I don't think I'm going to do it. I don't think I'm going to sign up. Like I was telling him, like, it's the same weekend of your first sale. So, like, for pickup. So that would be really difficult and like all of this stuff. And Jeff was just like, no, Sarah, you've been wanting to do this for 9 years and you haven't been able to. He's like, it is really important that you do it. And ever since I've went and gotten this Mustang, I mean, he makes sure he's even changed his schedule a bit for me, feeding
Mhm.
cows and tagging calves. Like, he's changed it up a little bit, making sure that he gets back early enough that there's time for me to go out in the evening and work with her before dinner.
Yeah.
And, he's taking the time out of his day and he's providing that for me because he knows that this is important to me. It's something that I've always wanted to do. And I haven't had the opportunity to train horses for a while. And, you know, he just knew that it's very important to me, that it's something that would bring me a lot of joy and bring me a lot of relief and kind of be myself again outside of being a mom and a wife. He was like, it's something that you need to do. And he even told me, like, even when I was like, I just don't think I'm going to do it. He's like, no, you're doing it,
Yeah.
you know? And so, yeah. So now that we've talked about a little bit about husbands, talking about what it means to be a godly wife. And so, what does God call a wife to be? Noble in character, and then brings her husband good, not harm.
Mhm.
Um, and that was one verse that's Proverbs 31:12. She brings him good and not harm in all the days of her life. She's clothed in dignity and strength and has joy for the days to come. She speaks with wisdom. And a lot of this is from Proverbs 31. And these were the things that particularly I really, really liked and I wrote down. This one, actually, as yesterday, as I was preparing for this, I felt convicted on. And today got up and uh, went to it. And this is where is it here? Proverbs 31:27. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat of the bread of idleness. And that's something that I have been personally struggling with. Just being like, oh, well, I can pick up the living room and clean it tomorrow. I can, putting
Mm.
housework off until tomorrow. And I'm just busy, especially with trying to do the Mustang training series and edit videos and stuff. My days have consisted of getting up, feeding Juniper, and then sitting on my phone and trying to edit videos all day long until
Mhm.
it's time for me to go out and work with Remuda, and then I come in and cook dinner. And so yesterday when I read that, I'm like, so I got up today and fed Juniper, and I started a rule that and I can get up and we can watch one show together. Both of us take our time to wake up, eat breakfast, and then I have to get up and then I have to get going. I have to start picking up the house. I have to do something, to be productive, to
Yeah.
manage the affairs in my house and not eat of the bread of idleness. Um, she fears the Lord. She is his helper, which Genesis 2:18 says, God created man a helper. She respects her husband and she is submissive. And I saved the submissive part until last because that's the one that women always get hung up on. I myself
Yeah.
got hung up on the submission deal. And I think, especially when it comes to ranch wives and stuff like that, the submission isn't something that is natural to us.
No, most women who are hardy enough to be ranch wives usually are a little bit more stubborn-headed too.
Yeah, we're a lot more take charge. We're a lot more gung ho. We're very certain type of personality.
Definitely.
So submission isn't necessarily something that comes very easily or even willingly.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to talk about submission and what it is. And Jess and I were talking about this yesterday a little bit. How over the years with me, like I've realized that the more that I see my husband become what God calls him to be, I find myself being willingly submissive. Like it's coming naturally to
Yeah.
me. Before I used to hate, I still don't particularly enjoy cleaning house and cooking dinner. But now I'm finding joy in those things because my husband, he's out working hard all day long.
Yeah.
And even though I hate doing those things, I find joy in it because it makes me excited that he's going to come home to a clean house and he's going to come home to a good meal.
Yeah.
And those things like that submission, when your husband fulfills his role and he's providing for you the love, the care, the emotional support, the spiritual support and growth, and he's being a good dad and he's kind and considerate of you, those things, like, they just start coming so naturally.
Yeah. It's it's
And
definitely it's definitely interesting to watch, like, as my husband grows, how easily it becomes for me to kinda take that step back. And, like, even the word you said before, which was, like, um, helper, right? I know lots of women who are like, "Well, I don't wanna just be a helper." And I've done some research on that part too, it's not just helper. The literal translation is helpmate. And the only other time that God uses that word in the Bible was actually when he was describing himself. And so being your husband's helpmate, being submissive to them is not just it it's a huge place of honor almost. And I always think of like in terms of like when you've got relationship with God and relationship with your horse, right? Like if God's that cowboy and you're trying to be that good horse, that nice bridle horse and listen and be submissive and willing, right? And do anything that he needs you to be. If my husband was, another horse pulling a cart and it was my job to follow him and listen to God, and I'm that other horse in that cart, I'm not as strong as he is, but it's my job to help him pull the cart. It's my job to
yes.
help him get where it is that we need to go. I let him lead. I'm not the one trying to like, oh, we need to go this way, we need to do this, we need to do this. I'm sitting there listening to him. And when your husband is those things that we talked about before, like he is a good leader. He is providing. He is being there for your emotional needs. And it is easy. It is a lot easier. I know when you were just saying like you want your husband to come home to like a home cooked meal and like a nice house and stuff. I struggle with that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a clean freak, not OCD, but I don't like a messy house. My house was kind of cluttered when I was a kid and it bugged me. And so I kind of like to keep my house decently clean. And it's not perfect by any means. I still have a toddler. But I'm always in that mindset of I want my house to be clean for my kid. I don't want Layla to grow up in a messy house and feel anxious or stressed out. I wanted her to grow up in a clean home and I wanted her to have a good meal. And I realized like I should have that mindset for my husband too. My husband does deserve to come home to a clean house and a good meal. And for some reason I don't. For some reason I have this mindset of like, oh, you're so lucky you get to come home to a clean house and somebody else does your laundry. I'm like, I should not think that way because, like, Brady pays for everything that I need. Like, right now, we've been looking at saddles because we want to get pregnant and have another baby. And I know I'm sure as heck not going to fit in the saddle that I have now, right? Like, I'm not the one who has to go out and work my butt off. And there was a time in my life before we were married that I did. I had to work hard every single day, beat the crap out of myself. I was exhausted. I am way happier now. I am much happier staying at home, cleaning the house, playing with my kid, and going out and helping him when he needs. Like the other day, he got his tractor stuck and I had to go pull him out. And I was very excited about it a little bit because I was like, here I come to the rescue to help you. And like it's fulfilling those roles and being at home, like, yes, it can be hard. No, you're not out, getting to do the cool cowboy stuff anymore, but there's a huge importance in the role that you have. And I think in today's society, one of the things we struggle the most with as being the helpmate, being submissive, is the fact that you're not earning a paycheck. And that for us is just something that society's kind of drilled into us like, oh, you're not worth anything because you're not bringing in an income. And it's like, I'm literally doing the most important job I will ever do in my
Yeah.
entire life right now. I
Yeah.
am raising my child. I am loving my husband. Like, those are the things that I should be doing right now. And it doesn't matter if I'm bringing in a paycheck or not. It matters if I'm doing those things well.
Yes. And the thing, like, there's a lot of women out there, like, when you say helper, they think of the gopher or whatever, go for this, go for that, kind of helper.
Yeah.
But even in Proverbs 31, like, yesterday was probably the first time I've read Proverbs 31 in a long time because, like, I had this whole idea of, like, back, everyone's like, be the Proverbs 31 woman, be the meek and mild
Mhm.
person. And so yesterday was the first time I probably read Proverbs 31 since like high school, actually. And I'm reading it. I'm like, dude, a Proverbs 31 is kind of awesome. Like, it does talk about a wife noble in character. She brings her husband good, not harm. But then it goes on. She selects wool and flax and works eager with her hands. She's like a merchant
Yeah.
sh She's like the merchant ships bringing in food from afar. She gets up while it is still dark and provides food for her family and portions for the servant girls. She considers a field and buys it out of her earnings and plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously, and her arms are strong for her tasks. Like, dude, I never even realized that, like, I've read Proverbs 31, but it was like when I was reading it in the Bible studies and stuff in high school, they're all pointing out all of the like brings good, not harm. She's noble character. She speaks wisdom. And they're not talking about how this woman's out there growing vineyards and working vigorously and her
Right?
arms are strong. Like, I'm like, that's the Proverbs
Yeah.
31 woman I want to be, And so it doesn't
Right.
mean that you're just this person that, when your husband's working on the tractor and he's like, hand me the crescent wrench. And you're like, I don't know what a crescent wrench is. And then he has to find it and show it to you. And you're like, okay, here. And you're just handing him stuff. Like, you could be under there with him too, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
Proverbs 31 woman is strong and she works alongside her woman. And back in the day, I mean, if you think in biblical times, women were out in the fields working with their husbands. They were out there,
Yeah.
planting, growing, and harvesting crops. They were tending to the livestock and all of the things that their husband was doing. Yes, their husband was the head and was the lead of all of that, but they were still out there doing all of those things. They weren't just out there bringing them
Mhm.
lemonade when it got hot.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And so
Well, like,
that
I
also
think
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think also too, one of the things that's important to remember is like God knows the importance of our health. He knows the importance of us getting outside and doing things. Like his idea of a woman is not a bear in a cave. Like it's not your
Mhm.
job to stay in the house and do the dishes and never go anywhere or never do anything. When we talk about go out and tend the fields and grow food and go do things, get out of the house and take the kids
Mhm.
with you. Like, that was one piece that was kinda hard for me, because as I was, Layla was getting older, she kept wanting to do everything it was that I was doing, and I'm like, "Dude, I can't ever get anything done if you're constantly with me." And that was something God kinda spoke to me about. He was like, "Bring her along. Let her do it. Like, even if it's dangerous, even if it's hard, even if it's kinda scary, like, do it." I'm like, "Okay." So I
Yeah.
start doing the dishes and pull up a chair and give her a towel, she'd dry the dishes, right? We go outside every morning, feed the horses. There's a grain bucket. Put some grain in the bucket and give it to the horses, and she loves it. That's how they learn. And I think a lot of women get so stuck on this idea of protecting their children that they forget the idea that no, it's important for your kids to go out and learn how to do stuff. Like, that's
Mhm.
what they want to do, even if it's a little bit dangerous, even if it might be a little bit scary. Like, take your kid outside and go teach him how to feed the horses. Like, she's
Mhm.
2, so what? Go. Like, it's gonna be okay. I remember I have a video of Brady when Layla was, I don't know, 2 months old maybe, had her strapped to his chest, rolling up a piece of barbed wire, and, like, me as a mom was a little bit nervous with my first kid strapped to my husband's chest, and there's pointy barbed wires going past her little toes, but, like, I had to trust my husband in that moment. I knew that she was gonna be okay. Layla was passed out asleep. Like, take the kid. Go
Yeah.
out and do things. She might get a sunburn. It's not the end of the world. She's probably
Yeah.
gonna crash, but, like, this is how kids learn, is by going out and doing whatever it is that you're doing. And get out of the house. Go
Yeah.
plant a garden. Go raise your chickens. Feed the horses. Help
Yeah.
your husband process cattle. Like, it's okay.
And that's what I've been telling a lot of women that reach out to me and they're like, how did you transition from like cowboying all the time or training horses into being a stay-at-home mom? Because they're just like, they're so scared that they're just going to be, their life is just going to be, I'm a mom. That's it.
Mhm.
I'm here to raise kids and clean house. And it will be that way if you make it. But it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be that way, you know? And that's something that I myself, like, I'm still working on a little bit with Juniper with the age that she's at now. Before she was walking, kind of thing, like, it was like, okay, stick her in her stroller, go out and work horses,
Yeah.
stick her in her car seat, go and work horses. I got to say, it was a lot easier training horses before she could walk.
Right.
But
Yeah.
But, you know, when we moved here, we were kinda in that weird age where she had just started walking, she wasn't really quite listening, and so, yeah, there was a season where it's like, "Okay, we're more so inside,"
Mhm.
because she wasn't old enough to listen, and, you always had to keep an eye on her, so it's like, "Okay, right now I can't take on training horses because I can't, take her out there and let her wander around because she's not gonna listen, and there's
Yeah.
rattlesnakes here. That was my biggest fear too, is the rattlesnake issue. I'm like, I just don't want her going, "Snake," and picking up a rattlesnake kinda deal. And so
Yeah.
that was something that was scary for me. And so every time that we're outside, I'm like, she has to be within arm's reach so I can grab her and snatch her away from the snake, kind of thing. And has just, it was last summer was a little bit more difficult because I was even just really scared to go out in the yard with her a lot of the times
Mhm.
kinda deal. But this year, she's 2 now, and she's listening a lot better. She does a really good job,
Mhm.
like, I don't feel like I have to have the constant need to keep an eye on her, kinda thing.
Mhm.
She's getting into something she shouldn't be. Now she understands you don't go into these rooms, you don't play in these cupboards, you don't she understands the rules, and she doesn't when she learns that she's not allowed to do that. She really doesn't push her boundaries on that kind of deal. And so this year I'm really excited to be able, we're going to be able to go outside more and stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
I'll be able to take her out and put her on her pony or on Phil and go, all right,
Yeah.
do whatever while I work with this colt, kind of
Yeah.
thing. When we do get colts in, kind of thing, I'm going to set up out by the round pen. I'm going to make a pen for her that are outside toys.
Mhm.
And when we're outside, she could play in the dirt and those outside toys and have as much fun as she want. I'll put a kiddie pool in there and it will be disgusting like a dog pen, probably the mud pool and, Tonka trucks or whatever she wants to play with out there. She can just get as filthy dirty as she wants while I work with colts. I don't care, you know?
Yeah.
you're only stuck in the house as much as you make it when it comes to, and like
Yeah.
I said, there is seasons. Like there was last year was a season where it was like, okay, we're just in a season right now where I am in the house more than I would like to be, but it's all it's all a phase, you know?
One of the things about like seasons and stuff too that's really important to remember is God kind of puts you in a desert season when he's preparing you for something. And that's something I've always really noticed is like when I was pregnant with Layla right before right before we started Bridles and Bibles. We lived in Christmas Valley, middle of nowhere. There was nothing to do. There was no gym. We didn't even have money to go anywhere or do anything. And I was so stinking sick. I was in the house 24/7. I was in the house way more pregnant than I was after she was born. And it was in that waiting season, they kinda call it being in the desert season, and that's okay because that's the season where God's gonna start working on your heart. That's the season where it's like, "Hey, come be with me." It reminds me of, like, a horse that's buddy sour, right? And they just wanna go be with their buddies. "I wanna go be with my buddies. I gotta go be with my buddies because I'm gonna die if I'm not." And what do you do with that horse? You ride him away from his buddies until he stops freaking out about his buddies, and then
Yeah,
eventually he gets to the point where
until
he
he
goes, "Oh,
learns to be
okay."
confident in you. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's a lot of time what that season is about. If you're stuck in the house with your kid right now, don't look at it as, "Oh my gosh, I'm stuck in the house with the kid, and I never get to go anywhere, and I'm not myself anymore." God's putting you in that position to be, "Hey, come be close to me. Come
Mhm.
spend time with me.
Turn to
Come
me.
find me." Exactly. And use that time to get closer to God because
Yeah.
there's going to come the next season when you are busy and you are running around, you are doing a lot of stuff and it's hard and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted." Because that's how
Yeah.
I feel now. After starting Browse and Bibles, I'm like, God, I'd do anything just to stay in the house and not like my schedule for March is insane. I have a meeting with a person every single evening this week. And like take that time. Enjoy
Yeah.
it. Like it's hard, it sucks. You get bored, you're like I need out of the house. And if your husband's that good husband that you can follow, he'll make time to help you and get you somewhere, let you go out, go do things and stuff. But there's a reason we get called to those kinds of seasons, and sometimes looking for that reason really helps prep you for the next season, which is going to probably be a lot more chaotic,
Yeah.
and you're going to be wishing you could go back. Because there are times right now where I'm like, I could go back to just sitting in the house and not having any responsibility. That sounds okay.
Yeah. That's the way that I've kind of felt, this winter. I felt I was starting to feel kind of pent up in the house, and just it was just a I've never experienced winter like one here where it was like either freezing fog or pouring down rain. So either way, it wasn't like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, this would be a lovely day to go out and ride my horse and decompress. Because
Yep.
either it was freezing cold, freezing fog, slick, or just downpouring rain. And so I
Ugh.
was like, even the days that was like, if it's not downpouring, it's freezing. It was just like, even if I had the opportunity to get outside and ride my horse, I don't think I'd want to.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, now friends are coming over. Now we're going and picking up this Mustang. And then I came down and did, spoke at the Bridals and Bibles event. And then like now I'm working this Mustang every single day. And now I'm kind of like, even this week we were running out of things. And I'm just like, I don't even want to drive the 15 minutes to the store to go get cheese. Like
Yep.
it wasn't until we were out of quite a few things. I'm like, I kind of have to go now because I can't even make dinner tonight.
Yep.
But, you know, and then you turn around, you're like, "I just kinda want a day where I relax in the house and I don't have to go anywhere," you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
But like you said, in those seasons, even when you're busy or even when you're slow, like, you have to be able to turn to God and find the joy. Like, even when you're getting tired of something, you know,
Mhm.
you gotta be able to turn to God and find the joy in it. And I've started to learn that in those slow seasons, when I start getting kinda cabin fever and, I wanna get out of the house. No, just enjoy your time with your kid,
Yeah.
because there was some sort of thing that I read, I can't remember, some study done that by the time your kid is like 10 years old, you've spent 75% of your time with them.
Wow.
Because when they turn 10, they start going to friends' house, wanting to hang out with friends, wanting to go out and
Yeah.
do things. They're old enough now to where you're like, "Okay, yeah, you can go and spend a weekend at your friends, and I'm not gonna, like, stress out about it." You know how to feed
Yeah,
yourself
right.
and, kinda thing. You're somewhat responsible now. And so, yeah, by the time it's like either 10 or 12 or something like that, you've spent 75% of your personal time, one-on-one time with your kid by the time they turn that age. And when I read
Yeah.
that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Juniper's already 2," and that flew by so freaking quick.
Yeah.
And so you gotta start, treasuring those moments in that time with your kids, even in the
Yeah.
slow season, and find the joy in that. And it can be
Yeah.
really hard. Like, that's something, I mean, I do struggle with it in the wintertime when things aren't busy and I'm inside and outside sucks. It's just like,
Yeah.
I just wanna do something.
Yeah.
It's
It's
really hard
definitely
to turn.
hard. Yeah, it's definitely hard during the winter time because when they're little, they're not big enough to really, like, dress warm and be like, "Hey, go outside and do something." It's
Yeah.
when they're small like that and their hands get cold and everything,
They don't
there's
wanna wear gloves?
yeah, exactly, like, Layla hates gloves. It's definitely a lot more difficult to go spend out time outside, go do things, and it can be really difficult because your kid gets tired, and especially, like, when it's your first kid, they don't have any siblings to play with, and they're just kinda constantly like, "Mama, mama, mama, mama." Like, that's how I felt
Yeah,
this winter. It was just, "Mommy, mommy,
yeah,
mommy, mommy." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, if you don't leave me alone right now, I'm gonna die." And, like, one thing I've definitely read about and seen is moms really don't get a lot of dopamine from playing with their kids. Dads get a lot of dopamine from playing with their kids. Moms get dopamine from cuddling with their kids.
mhm,
So when your kid constantly is bored and stuck in the house with you and is like, "Do something, play with me, entertain me, do something," you're like, "I'm gonna," like, I personally am like, "I'm done." Like, I'm not here to entertain you, child. Like,
yeah,
I have other things that I would like to do. And those seasons definitely can be hard. And I think it's important to remember that pretty much every single mom struggles with it. Like,
yeah,
every mom goes through this part, but it does go by really quickly. It is important to appreciate these little moments and love them, and it's okay if it's hard too. Like,
yeah,
if you had a bad day and struggled with your kid and wanted to throttle them the whole time, that's okay. Kiss them on the forehead, put them to
yeah,
bed, tell them you love them
yeah,
because tomorrow they're gonna be 25.
yeah. And one of the best advice, some of the best advice that I got from one of my friends, she was pregnant with her second at the same time I was pregnant with Juniper.
Mhm.
And, she was telling me she was one of the people that wasn't like, "Oh, it's gonna be such precious, joyous times. You're just gonna love every minute of it." She was like, "Being a mom sucks, but it's worth it," And she was always, and she said, when you have a newborn and like going through these stages, she's like, you need to remind yourself it's just a phase. And
Yeah.
she's like, if there's days that are hard days, especially with newborns when you're not getting much sleep, if they're colicky, Juniper had stomach issues, like she was always super gassy. She never slept really good. It wasn't until about 3 months ago that Juniper actually started sleeping through the night. Like,
No.
she did not sleep through the night. She'd wake up tossing and turning, and she was a violent sleeper because she had really bad gas in her sleep,
Oh.
and it just hurt, and she'd wake up crying. It'd take, a while for her to fall back asleep, constantly waking up and doing the bike pedals and the stomach massages,
Oh.
half asleep, trying to get her to fart, kinda thing, and spent way too much time the last almost 2 years trying to get somebody to fart. I've spent more time trying to get that kid to fart than I ever thought I would spend in my life trying to get somebody to
That makes
fart.
me feel
Nobody told
bad
me
because
that
my
you'd
daughter started
spend.
sleeping through the night at, like, 5 days old.
No, not Juniper. It wasn't until a few months ago. And so,
Oh.
yeah, like, that was something that was really hard for me because I've always been somebody that I'm like, I need 10 hours of sleep. I love
Mhm.
my sleep. I am a sleeper.
Mhm.
And to be woken up every 45 minutes to an hour, like, it was hard.
Oof.
It was so hard. And then everybody's like, sleep when the baby sleeps. But I'm not the person that, like, I can't just lay down and pass out. It takes me like an hour to calm my mind down enough to fall asleep. And then by the time I'd
Oh.
fall asleep when she was taking a nap, she was waking up. And so it's like I
Yeah.
was on very minimal sleep and I was having such a hard time. And, my friend told me, she's like, even if there's days that are super hard, you're super exhausted and all of those things, she's like, if you can even just tell yourself, just get through the day going, I could do this another 10 minutes. You can do anything for 10 minutes and just do that all
Yeah.
day long. 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes. And the other thing that I tell people too, like, don't, when it comes to, especially when it comes to newborns, don't feel like that you need to constantly be in their presence and see, like, I struggle with that for a while because, like, just leaving her alone. Because, for one, it took me so long to get pregnant with her. And then before I had her, I had a miscarriage. And then there was, like, when we were like 15 weeks, I started bleeding a lot and went to the hospital. And
Mm.
I can't remember the scientific term, but the placenta was separating off of the wall.
Yeah, I remember you
And
talking about
And then they were like, they basically just told me, "Go home, rest. You might miscarry, you might not. There's nothing we can do about it."
ugh.
And so, like, the entire pregnancy, I was just so worried about something happening and losing her. And, like, so when she finally was there, I felt like that I was just ultra overprotective of, like,
Yeah.
not necessarily, like, of letting other people hold her and stuff like that, but, like, I had to constantly have eyes on her. I had to see that she was breathing and
Yeah.
stuff. Like, I can't tell you how many times I woke up during the night, reached over and touched her in her sleep, make sure she was breathing.
Mhm.
And it was just hard, like, and it was really hard. And I remember telling my friends that, and they're just like, make sure that you're getting, you don't have to be in the presence of that child
24/7.
24/7. Like, if there's where you feel like that you are breaking down and that you can't handle, you can step outside and leave them inside. They can cry. If they're
Yeah.
crying, they're alive, for one. If
Right?
you need to step outside for a few minutes and take a breath and let the baby cry, do it.
Yeah. That is one thing I think a lot of times doctors especially do not tell new moms. Like, I always think of, like, cows, right? You see a mad mama cow, like, she's a good cow. She didn't take care of that calf, she's not gonna forget about it. But those hormones, when they kick in and you have that baby, they're strong. And you're going to have some very strong feelings about protecting your baby, protecting your child, making sure they're breathing, doing all of that stuff that you will exhaust yourself. And it's important to remember those are hormones and they are not fact, right? Like it's not reality that your child's going to die if they fall asleep and you don't sit there and stare at them the entire time. Like
Yeah.
you do kind of have to have that ability to take a step back and recognize and see, okay, I'm feeling this way for this reason. It's no different than like when you get on your period, right? And you're cranky with your husband for no reason, or you're pregnant, you're just, oh my gosh. And then you take a step back, you go, why am I acting like this? Why do I feel like this? And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm on my
Hormones.
period, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing when you have the baby. Your baby's going to come out. You're going to be hyper protective. You're going to be constantly watching them. And are they okay? And are they breathing? And is everything all right? And if you let the hormones take over, it'll drive you insane. It's
Yeah.
important to remember, okay, these are hormones. I'm okay. Baby's okay. I need to take a deep breath. And that was one thing that was really important for me when I decided that I wanted to have a baby, which was very shortly after getting married. Mostly it was just I want to get married and I want to have a baby. And that for me it was really important to me because I had worked on my relationship with the Lord. And I kind of wish there was a little bit of me that had waited a little bit and like gotten used to being a wife first. But I was very desperate to have a child. And I also thought that it would take a lot longer for me to get pregnant than it did. God was like, "No, child now." And I was like, "Oh, thank you, Lord." But when I decided I really wanted to have a baby, there was a couple things that was really important for me. It wasn't, "I wanna have a baby," it was, "I wanna be a mom," right?
Mhm.
And then it wasn't, "I wanna be" like, it's not that I want a husband, it's that I wanna be a wife. And it
Mhm.
was that mindset of kinda changing the idea of this is for me as this is me serving for somebody else. And so
Mhm.
when I decided I wanna have a child, it wasn't just I wanna have a baby, it was I wanna be a mom. And then the other part of it too was separating myself from having a baby and not just having a baby for me because I want the baby, having the baby So my husband could be a dad. Having the baby so my dad could be a grandfather. Having the baby so my mother could be a grandmother. So my brother could be an uncle. And knowing that it wasn't just for me when I had the kid, but it was for everybody else to love and appreciate her too.
Mhm.
And I think that's one thing that's really important when having children and keeping in your mindset that they are a gift from God and that they are here to be appreciated, to be loved, and to be admired.
Mhm.
That is what creates a good, healthy child and a good, healthy
Yes.
childhood, especially. And I think sometimes for me, like watching Layla, when we had the baby, I know a lot of parents will wait until they get home to like bring family and stuff like that. As soon as I had the baby, I had all of my family members, like my dad, my grandparents, everybody came and saw Layla, and she was 2 hours old and was getting passed around to everybody because it wasn't just about me bonding with the baby, it was about everybody getting to bond with her. It
Mhm.
wasn't just me and Brady, it was my dad and his dad and my grandparents and my mom, and everybody was there to bond with the baby, to see
Yeah.
her, to love her, to appreciate her. And that for me, I feel like helped with the hormones quite a bit in that action of just like my child, I have to hold her, she's mine. It helped me kind of let go of this is for me, I have to protect it, and handing it over and watching everybody else get to hold her and love on her and appreciate her kind of helped those hormones of overprotectiveness calm down. And that's
Mhm.
obviously not going to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to want to do that. But I think for me, it helped a lot. And then when after we went home and stuff, people came over all the time. And then it also gave me the opportunity to be like, I need to go take a shower. And so
Yeah.
my mom could hold the baby and I wasn't freaking out, or my dad or whoever. And people would come over and visit. And I kind of got over this idea of like, oh, I have to look presentable. And I was just like, I'm in my pajamas. I look terrible. I don't really care. You're not here to see me anyway. So here's the
Yeah.
baby. I'm going to go take care of myself, and taking those steps back and learning how to take care of myself and let other people take care of her helped a lot with the hormones in that aspect as well.
Yeah, when I had Juniper, I wanted time to myself, not because I was overprotective of her, because I was the person that was like, when I don't feel good, I don't want anybody around. And so I knew
Right?
I wasn't gonna feel good. So I was like, I let my family come over, and then I had some friends set up, like, where they were bringing meals and stuff, but my one of my good friends, she was really good, she was like, "How many people do you want at your house?" I'm like, "I'd prefer not to have people visiting all of the time." And so she's like, "Sweet, I'll have them
Mhm.
drop it off with me, and I'll bring all the food to you." I never had, like, a I'm the only one allowed to hold her, like, I was very much like, "Here, hold her, please," because I didn't want her to have, like I didn't wanna start off with, "She can only get comfort from mom," kinda
Yeah.
thing, that as soon as you pass her off, she's gonna scream her head off, because I knew that
Yeah.
I was gonna like to have the opportunity to go take a shower or,
Right.
go and do something or run to the store and not have her, like, a miserable mess the entire time I was gone. But I definitely, I was like, "I'm gonna be very vulnerable, I'm gonna be sore, and I'm gonna be so I don't want anybody here." My mom came, and she would come and clean house and stuff like that, and then, of course, like, my sister and her husband and their family came because they were leaving, like, 4 days after Juniper was born, they were leaving to go back to Indonesia, so I was like, "You got come, please, please come see her
Yeah.
because you might not be able to see her until she's, like, 5." So
Right.
after having Juniper, I'm like, with the next one, like, because my mother-in-law, she really wanted to come and be there for the birth and, like, be there and all of this stuff, and I felt kinda bad because we were living in their house at the time. They have 2 houses, one in Oklahoma and one in, Idaho, and I felt
Mm.
bad because they asked Jeff, they're like, "Well, can we come and stay and, like, be there for, like, the birth and stuff?" And I was like, "No, no." And I felt bad
Nope.
looking back now, I'm like, "I feel really bad. That was their own house, and I told them they couldn't come home." But this time, like, I'm like, when it's time for us to have another kid, like, I'm like, I would be more than happy to have Jeff's parents there. Like,
Yeah.
especially seeing them with Juniper and how amazing they are with her. Like, I would love for them to be there. If Jan wants to, like, now I went from being such a private person, like, don't look at me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
After having kids, I tell people, I'm like, if you were a private person, like, you won't be anymore. After having
Nope.
kids, like, after going
Nope.
through that, like, I had med students in the room and like a room full of freaking people I've never met before giving birth. And
Yeah.
after that, I'm just like, I
Forget it.
don't
Whatever.
care. And so now I'm like,
I was
yeah.
I was
And
always
so like,
amazed at how, like, how, like, free you get about your boobs. Like, when
mhm.
you are breastfeeding a child, they are no longer boobs, they are udders. Like,
Yes.
it doesn't matter. I didn't care who saw them anymore. I was like, "Sure, whatever, this is the boob." It was hilarious because my friend Luke and Cami, Luke is, like, Brady's best friend, Cammie's a really good friend of mine, his wife, and she was actually pregnant at the time that I was pregnant, but I had Layla first. She was just, like, barely pregnant, and they came over to the hospital to see Layla. I was breastfeeding, and Luke is a wonderful guy, but very much more on the reserved side. And I'm sitting there breastfeeding, and he's like looking around, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't even care, dude. Like, this isn't a boob
Uh,
anymore. This is now an udder.
yeah.
That don't care. Sorry. And then like
But
I was like, here, hold her. And he's like, okay. And I'm like,
yeah.
whatever. Felt bad,
Yeah.
but like,
I went from being the person that like when somebody didn't cover up breastfeeding, I'm like, oh my gosh, be modest. And now I'm like, it's okay. I feel you.
yeah, yeah.
You
I don't
just
know,
want to get
something
it
just
done.
changes. They're not even sexy anymore. It's just
Yeah.
it's literally like a cow udder. You're like,
Yeah.
this is no longer a boob.
Yeah.
It's so funny
Yeah.
how that happens.
There's my friend that was pregnant at the same time. Her daughter came uh a month early. And so we went over there and I was like heavily pregnant with Juniper. And her
Mhm.
baby obviously was a NICU baby and she had the pump and everything like that. She couldn't breastfeed. And we're sitting there, Jeff and I are sitting there visiting. I'm sitting in the middle of the couch. Jeff's sitting on my right side and she's sitting on my left side. And she just like pulls down and she starts pumping. And Jeff's like, and her son's trying to play with him. And he's just like, I'm trying to take a nap. Leave me alone. Uh,
Poor Jim. Yeah, it's funny how that happens. You're just like, yeah, whatever.
yeah,
Don't care. For
things
all of those
change.
women out there who are like pregnant or like trying to get pregnant or something, like your body just it doesn't even matter anymore. I don't know
Yeah.
why. It just it nothing. Nothing phases you.
Yeah. I used to be so reserved about things
Mhm.
like, even after Jeff and I being married 7 years, I was always close the door. I couldn't pee in front of him. Like that's a private moment. Kind of like I was that reserved. And now I'm just
Yeah.
like, now I get like I remember being so mad at my mom because she never closed the door when she went to the bathroom growing up. And I'm like, it's so embarrassing. Now I'm like, I get it. Because
No.
if I close it, she's just gonna be pounding on the door screaming. So I might as well leave it open.
Right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, like becoming a mom, like there's a lot of women out there that, it's a scary thing. I went through it myself and like a lot of women have a tendency like to go through their loss of independence and their like, big like crisis moment after having the baby. I would say, because I remember even going to my 6-week checkup and my doctor's like, are you okay? Is that like, all the are you mentally doing okay? And I'm like, I feel
Mhm.
great. And she's like, well, normally women at this stage, they come in and they're like crying. And like, I can't do this. And I'm like, no, I'm having like, I feel great. And she's
Yeah.
like, I told her, I was like, I'm pretty sure I went through that crisis when I was pregnant with Juniper because, like I said, it was a high risk pregnancy. And so there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. And so, like, I went, I found out I was pregnant working at the Krause, and I immediately told everybody there, like, I'm pregnant. I can't feed the horses anymore. I can't do any heavy lifting. I can't ride and gather pens. Like, I can't do 90% of my job now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, that's okay. And at that point in time, I had already put in, I told them that we'd probably be leaving at some point in time, that we were thinking about moving up north. And so when I became pregnant with Juniper, that was just like the nail in the coffin there for them.
Right.
And but like when we moved up north and it went from, because like I said, I put in my 2 weeks and then found out, that's when I, like, thought I was gonna have miscarried Juniper, and I was on bed rest, and then we were in the middle of packing and getting everything ready to move
Yeah.
to North Idaho, and I'm on bed rest. And so they're like, I call my mom, and she comes down. My I love my mom when it comes to me moving because she's had a janitorial supply and cleaning business her entire life. That's all she's done. I mean, she will get everything packed, and her and dad used to redo houses. They'd buy houses, move into them, and like refurbish houses and then sell them and move again. So she knows how to pack, and she knows how to
Dang.
clean, and she knows how to move. And so she came down and did all of that. And then we move up to North Idaho. And so it was like all of this kind of like hectic stuff, people around, and then Jeff gets a job, and Jeff's parents leave, and all of a sudden I'm in the house by myself. And I'm like, what do I do?
Mm,
And then finally I was like, I'm going to ride our horses. And everybody's like, you shouldn't be riding. Like, even my doctor was kind of like, she told me when I first became pregnant, she's like, if you've been riding all of this time, keep riding. Like, there's no reason for you to stop. Like, if
yeah,
you're
that's what
safe,
they told me too.
But even my doctor then, she was kind of like, yeah, you might wait on the riding kind of deal. And then I was like, I can't sit inside all day. I have to go out and ride my horses. But it was hard for me not being able to like, hey, the horses are out of hay, but we have to wait for Jeff to have a day off so we can go and get hay. Like I can't
Mm,
just go and get a ton of hay by myself, like
right.
kind of deal. And I think that was a struggle for me. Like I felt like I lost a lot of my independence, and then getting super pregnant, not being able to put my own dang socks on. Man, 'cause I gained nearly 100 pounds. I went from 96 pounds to 187 pounds. So I almost gained 100 pounds. I'm just like, out of breath all the time. It's like even when I
Yeah.
did go out to ride my horses, like even just talking to people, I was just like I go back and I see my memories of when I was pregnant with Juniper making educational videos, and I'm just like struggling sitting in a chair. I'm like, so anyways, and I went through that loss of independence then, and I was really excited to have Juniper because I'm like, at least I can set her down. I can't
Yeah.
set my belly down. I can't, right?
Right?
She's inside me. I can't put her down. So when I
Yeah.
had her, like, it was like a huge relief to me. I'm like, I can set her down.
Yeah. I think I think for me, it really came down to feeling like I wasn't handy anymore, or I couldn't do the same things anymore.
Yeah.
Because I got pregnant and I gained a lot of weight too. I think I gained like 80 pounds or something like that. But I got fat. Like, I got fat because my husband eats a lot and therefore his children eat a lot. And so I put on a lot of weight. I was I was 230 pounds at the end of my pregnancy, and 30 of it was like Layla and placenta and stuff. So when we came home from the hospital, I was 200 pounds. And I've lost most of the weight. I've back down to like my pre-pregnancy size, but I lost a lot of muscle too. And then I ended up with like a bunch of health problems afterwards and wasn't able to do a whole lot. And my riding went to crap. Like, I couldn't ride to save my life. I knew how to ride, but I didn't have the muscle there anymore. I didn't have the balance. I wasn't able to ride the way that I knew that I could ride. And that for me was really difficult because I just felt like I had probably lost a part of my identity and who I was, but I just felt
Mhm.
like I wasn't really handy anymore. And it's taken 2 years for me to come back and feel
Yeah.
like I can do those things again. And one of the things that I learned quickly was just because I don't have the physical capability of being able to ride the way that I used to does not mean that I don't still have the knowledge. And
Yeah.
now that I'm mostly back in shape, my balance is back, I'm riding halfway decent again. And when they say it takes 2 years for your body to go back to normal after having a kid, it takes 2
Yeah.
years. It takes 2 years before your body feels like your body again. And now that I can ride halfway decent and I can do these things, I'm like, I never lost it. I wasn't not handy. I wasn't not, like, capable. I still had the knowledge. I still knew all the same stuff. I've learned more, if anything, and just because I couldn't do it at that moment doesn't mean that I can't do it. It kinda
Yeah.
reminds me, and I've always kinda wanted to do a clinic about this, so I might make it a monthly meeting. But I've always wanted to do a clinic or a meeting or something where I show up in like the craziest outfit ever. Cause like every person's like gonna show up in like, cowboy gear. You got your nice button up and your jeans and, your cool cowboy gear and stuff like that. And one of the things I learned was it doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter what you look like. You're still the same person. And that was one thing that I've always told myself is, sometimes I struggle with that little bit of identity of like, oh, I'm going to go out and go do this thing and I have to dress up, but nobody's going to know that I'm a handy cowboy. Like, I can go rope the calf the same in yoga pants as I can a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I wear. I can do the same job in a ball cap or a flat brim. I can do the same job in a clown hat. It doesn't matter. I can still do what it is that I do. That doesn't change. And just
Yeah.
because your body's changed because of pregnancy or having kids, you still have the same knowledge. You
Mhm.
can still do those things. It might be harder. You might have to take some time and learn how to redo things a little bit, shift your weight differently because you put on weight or because you lost weight. But at the end of the day, you still have this same knowledge. And if you,
Yeah.
this is something that you really love and you really care about, get out there and don't be afraid to make the mistake. Don't be afraid to ride poorly. It took me
Yeah.
years riding after having Layla. And like a huge part for me that I really struggled with was I had a C-section. I had this giant scar across my abdomen where I was trying to learn how to reuse my pelvic floor again to like pick my body weight up and move and literally get my ab muscles to reattach to my hips and be able to feel those things
Mhm.
again. Because when I got back on a horse, I rode like this. And my boobs had gotten
Yes.
bigger
Yeah.
and were way heavy. And I'm like, and I rode terrible. And I knew I was riding terrible. That was the funny thing. It was like, I knew how I was riding. I knew that it was wrong. And it was just relearning how to get my body to come back and ride correctly again. And I think one of the things that I've loved the most and that I have learned the most, and I was telling my physical therapist the other day actually, was that every time I injure something, I learn how to ride better. Like,
Yes.
I injured my ankle taking this funny medication. And in injuring my ankle, I've actually learned how to balance better because I have
Mm.
to do these exercises to get my ankle to be better. And I've learned how to get my feet to start to work out and actually help me in my riding and like gripping and moving and balancing, right? And when I injured my pelvis, I learned how to teach people how to use their pelvis to ride better. When I've messed up my neck and my shoulders, I've learned to pick up my neck and my shoulders and ride better by sitting up taller. And that
Mhm.
wasn't like I never would have learned those things if I hadn't injured those things,
Yeah.
right? So when I had the baby and I had the C-section, I learned how to get my body to communicate with itself because it had been injured and I had to relearn how to do those things. It's like relearning how to walk. If you're in a bad accident, you have to relearn how to walk. Relearning how to walk the second time is going to be a lot easier than learning how to walk the first time because the first time you were little and you didn't really know, right?
Yeah.
So if one of your reserves about having children or being pregnant or having kids, don't be scared about walking through injury or having your body be different because the likelihood is that it's probably going to make you a better rider in the long run
Yeah.
if you go at it with the right mindset, right?
That
And
was
you'll learn more.
yeah. I think that was the thing that becoming a mom that I was least prepared for, and it was a huge blow to my confidence
Mhm.
when I went to go back and start writing again after having Juniper. Because everybody told you that, tells you your body's gonna change and all of that.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that, like, when I go to get back on a horse, I was gonna feel like an absolute beginner again.
Yeah.
That my seat was gonna be gone, and my
Mhm.
balance was gonna be gone. Same thing, like, the first time I got back on, I found myself doing this, and I'm
Yep.
like, "Whoa, why am I leaning over my horn?" Like,
Yeah.
that's weird, and, like, the first time I went to canter, poor Phil and her back, it was I mean, there I looked like, you know, a 12-year-old learning to ride and just going out and hopping on their butts just doing this on the saddle. It was like
Yep.
my butt was sore the next day after cantering because it was hitting the saddle so hard. I'm like,
Mhm.
poor Phil. And it took, like you said, it took 2 years. It wasn't until recently that I really started feeling a lot like I've actually back to being able to like ride and use my seat and all of those things the way that I should.
Yeah.
And like the other thing that I wasn't prepared for is the fear of getting back in this, like I didn't have it obviously with my horses because I knew them
Yeah.
and I trained them. I started them all under saddle. I trained them all, put all of the training in myself, rode them, all of them throughout my entire pregnancy up until 2 weeks before Juniper was born.
Mhm.
And then we moved to this one place and this lady wanted me to start a cult for her. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to get back into starting cults. And I'm doing all of the groundwork and everything with him. And I go to step in the saddle and put the first ride on this colt. And I'm like, my whole body's just
Shaking.
shaking. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I had all of these pictures of everything going wrong and me breaking my neck and dying.
Mhm.
Like,
I think that's
nobody
something
told me
that's
about that.
yeah, that's something
And
that's really important, I think, to talk about, especially with, like, horsewomen, is it's gonna get hard to get back into the saddle. Even sometimes with broke horses. Like, I don't start colts anymore. I don't hardly ever even ride other people's horses. If somebody
yeah,
bringing me a horse and I've seen them ride it a handful of times and I kinda know the
yeah,
horse and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll hop on it because I've seen them ride it several times." But I don't even take client horses anymore
yeah.
because
The
I
first,
don't have to. My husband does it.
the
But
first
when go ahead.
Go ahead. The first handful of clinics that I went to, I was always the person like if somebody's horse just what it wasn't clicking because of the rider, I
Mhm.
would just be like, "Hey, let me take your horse." I didn't
Yeah.
care about, whatever that horse had been doing. If it'd been crow hopping or like spooking or squirting out, I didn't care. I'd tell him, "Get off your horse, let me get on. Let me show you."
Mhm.
It took me handful of clinics or more before I had the gumption to get on somebody's horse. And that clinic, it was even like it was a 2-day clinic. It was like the end of the second day after I'd seen that person riding that horse for 2 days
Yeah.
that I was like, "Okay, let me get on your horse,"
Yeah.
And these were like they weren't colts. They weren't, these were horses that people have ridden out and they've been ridden for a while and it wasn't necessarily a colt, and so
Mhm.
it was still like I was still too scared of because of my lack of balance.
Mhm.
I even got to the point like after having Juniper, like I was scared to even ride Reba and Reba was my go-to horse. And it wasn't that Reba
Yeah.
ever like it's not that she ever did anything to try to buck me off or do anything. She's never done anything dangerous, but she's so quick and she's so sensitive and in tune with your balance. Like you just shift your seat like this and she'll spin around real quick. And I was so
Yeah.
scared that I'd just be doing something and lose my balance and she'd spin around and I'd fall off.
Yeah.
And
It
so
took
like
me
even when
about
I
a year before I started riding Simba because I just knew he was just way more athletic than I was. Knew I
yeah.
wasn't gonna stay on.
And yeah, it took me a while. Like I would ride Reba, but it was like a walk and a slow trot.
Mhm.
Like, I did not dare canter on her for the longest time. And, like, I was scared to.
Yeah.
And, I
There's a much bigger value on your life after having a kid because, you know, you fall off a horse when you're single or before you have children and break your neck and die. The only person who got hurt was you, right?
yeah,
And, people care about you and love you and things like that. But when you're a mom and you get hurt or you fall off and you die, you don't just hurt you. You leave your child without a mother. And there's a huge weight on that. And I think that one of the important pieces is when you become a mom and you're a horseman, and I say this all the time, regardless if you're a mom or not, is this is dangerous. Riding horses is dangerous, whether you're jumping or trail riding or cowboying, it's dangerous no matter what. Even the most brokest horse can kill you on
yeah,
accident. It doesn't matter. And if you ignore the fact that it's dangerous, it becomes more dangerous. You
yeah,
have to always be vigilant about the fact that this is dangerous and what you're doing is scary and it is hard. So when you become a mom, it's kind of hard to ignore that fact anymore.
yeah,
You can't just sit there and be like, "Oh no, I'm going to be totally fine." No, you're not. You're putting your hands in this animal's life. You're taking your life and you are putting it in this animal's hands and you are trusting it. And if you're doing that with a colt or something you don't know or trust, or a horse that you know is not very safe, like, you are putting your life in something you know isn't trustworthy, anybody would be scared, right?
Yeah.
And then to turn around and do it with a child behind you? No. No. Like,
Yeah.
that is hard. That is terrifying. And it's okay if after you become a mom, you're like, I don't want to start colts anymore. I don't want
Yeah.
to put the first ride on. I don't want to
Well,
do
it's
these things because it's
it's like
scary.
I messaged you the other day. I'm like, "Does Brady wanna put the first ride on my Mustang?"
He said he would, by the way,
Okay. We'll see
if
how
you
she
need
does
it.
by the end of the week.
Okay. Yeah, you let me know. I'll bring my Bronx Stomper. That's what we did tonight. We went over to my friend Lauren's house to try out a horse that she's thinking about buying because it hadn't been ridden since like December.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, I'll bring Brady. And Brady comes out there and he's like, yeah, let's go for a bronc ride. And I'm
Yeah.
like, my husband loves this. It's fine. I don't do these things, but he loves it. Like even
And
my
you know what?
broke horse, every once in a while when he crops up, I'm like, Brady, get out of him. He's being a jerk.
And it's funny too, because like with this horse too, like she's never bucked. Like none of her
Mm-hmm.
it's always been just squirt forward. And like
Mm-hmm.
before I would always been like, whatever, I can handle squirting forward. But now that I'm a mom, I'm like, what if my leg gets caught on the fence?
Yeah.
It snaps off.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's terrifying. Like, you have a broken leg, it's gonna make taking care of Junie way harder.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I
you gotta be
fractured
careful
my
about
leg.
this stuff.
Yeah, I fractured my leg last summer and it was hard.
Yeah, exactly. That's not easy. It's difficult, it's scary, like, and it's okay if it's difficult or scary. Like, don't get mad at yourself for being like, I
Yeah.
can't do it. I'm nervous. I'm like, you're nervous for a pretty damn good reason. Like,
Yeah.
maybe
I
listen to
used
your
to be
instincts a little bit.
yeah, I used to be the type of person be like, I'll just do it even though I'm scared. I'll just do it. Now I'm like, it's not worth it. I don't care if you think I'm chicken. I do not care because
Exactly. Yes,
I'd rather be able to
exactly.
come home tonight and snuggle my daughter in bed.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't wanna ride other people's horses. Like, I used to just hop on anything. I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I get nervous about it for a little bit or something, and then I get over it. I'm like, "Alright, whatever, we're cool." Now I'm like, "No, I'm not." Even if it looks like it wants to buck, I'm like, "No." Even if it can't buck and it just wants to just be like, "Me, me," I'm like, "No, mm-mm. I'm not cowboy for enough for that." Horse bucks, and I'm just like, I'm just that looks soft over there. I'm gonna go land
Yeah.
over there." Like, I don't wanna be here right now, I'm good.
Do you want to close
Alright.
us in prayer?
Well, yes, I will. I'm happy to. Alright, God, we just wanna come to you tonight, Lord, and thank you for bringing us together. We wanna pray for all the listeners here, God, and hopes that, your words here tonight that you've given us has blessed them and helped them move forward in the life you've called them to. God, we just pray that you keep us safe and keep us going as we walk forward and doing these hard jobs, Lord, and doing them for you and being moms and husbands and wives and ranchers and horsemen. Lord, we pray that in everything you see that it glorifies you, Lord. We love you, we thank you, we trust you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys. Well, I'm Jesse,
And I'm Sarah.
and this is the Biblical Buckaroo.